Hello, friends. What if the secret to transforming your life wasn't something you had to find, but something already hardwired into your brain? In here, book the source, renowned neuroscientist and psychiatrist Swart blends cutting-edge brain science with timeless spiritual principles. Unlike other self-help books, this one doesn't just inspire. It explains how your thoughts literally shape your reality. This is where manifestation meets neuroscience, and it's more powerful than you think. If you're ready to take control of your mind and your future, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a life-changing summary. Chapter 1. The Law of Attraction. The first chapter introduces a bold idea, that the life you're living today is largely shaped by the thoughts you focus on and the energy you carry. This is not about wishful thinking or magical beliefs. It is about the science of how the brain filters, prioritizes, and acts on what you tell it matters. When your thoughts, emotions, and gut instincts are in harmony, you begin to operate from what the author calls your intention point. It is a powerful mental state where decisions feel clear, confidence rises, and life stops feeling like a random series of events. Instead, you begin to notice opportunities that match your goals because your brain has been trained to see them. A key concept here is the difference between abundance and lack. When you believe the world has more than enough for you, your brain responds by opening up new options. But if your thoughts are dominated by fear, past failures, or scarcity, your brain quietly pulls back. It resists risk, avoids change, and shuts down the creative power that could transform your life. The law of attraction becomes truly effective when you pair focused thought with action. You visualize what you want. You feel it deeply. You take small steps that align with it. Tools like an action board or daily journaling bring your desires into focus and send a clear message to the brain about what to filter in and what to let go of. Key quotes. Life is not just happening to us. We are creating it with everything that we do. You cannot manifest what you do not consciously notice. Your mindset shapes what your brain allows you to see. Action points. Write down one meaningful intention for your life that excites your heart and feels true in your gut. Notice where you are operating from fear or lack and gently begin to shift your thinking toward possibility and courage. Chapter 2. Visualize it. This chapter explores a powerful truth. Your brain does not know the difference between imagination and reality. When you vividly imagine a future goal, especially with emotion and detail, your brain begins to wire itself to bring that vision to life. This is the secret behind visualization and why elite athletes, artists, and high performers across the world use it to shape success. Visualization is more than dreaming. It is a rehearsal for the brain. When you imagine an outcome repeatedly, with all your senses engaged, you're training your neural pathways to believe it is possible. This builds confidence and reduces the fear that often holds people back from taking bold action. The author explains that when you visualize a goal regularly, it activates two critical functions in the brain. First is selective attention, which helps you notice things that align with your vision. Second is value tagging, which gives emotional weight to the things that matter most to you. Together, these guide your decisions, shape your motivation, and increase your ability to act with clarity. Visualization also has a calming effect. It reduces the brain's fear response and strengthens your belief in your ability to succeed. This inner certainty creates outer momentum. With consistency, what you imagine starts becoming what you experience. Key quotes. When the brain sees a vivid image, it starts preparing the body to live it. The more clearly you imagine your future, the more confidently you walk toward it. Visualization turns your wish into a rehearsal, then into reality. Action points. Close your eyes for 5 minutes each day and visualize one specific goal as if it is already happening. Engage all your senses. Create a space in your journal to describe your vision in detail and revisit it weekly to deepen your clarity and belief. Chapter 3. Your amazing brain, Genesis of the Source. This chapter opens a door into the most powerful tool you possess, your brain. For years, it was believed that the brain stopped changing after childhood. But modern science reveals something astonishing. Your brain can rewire, grow new connections, and even generate new cells well into adulthood. This discovery forms the foundation of everything that follows in the book. The author walks us through the brain's structure not as a dry anatomy lesson, but as a reminder of its magic. With over 80 billion neurons working together, the brain regulates how we feel, think, react, remember, and connect with the world. These neurons communicate through electrical impulses and chemical messengers, building pathways that become habits, beliefs, and behaviors. She introduces the story of Phineas Gage, a man whose traumatic brain injury dramatically changed his personality and led science to understand the brain's role in planning, impulse control, and decision-making. His case was the first proof that altering the brain physically can reshape who we are. This sets the stage for understanding that if damage can change us negatively, then focused effort can also change us positively. The core message is this: your brain is not fixed. You can train it to think differently, feel more empowered, and make better choices. But this starts with awareness. Only when you begin to observe your patterns, how you react under stress, how you speak to yourself, how you interpret failure, can you start to reshape them. Key quotes: your brain is not set in stone. It is a living, changing part of who you are. You become what you repeatedly do, feel, and believe. The brain has the power to rewrite the story you tell yourself. Action points: reflect on one limiting belief you hold about yourself. Ask if it is truly fixed or simply repeated. Learn one new fact about how the brain works and write down how it relates to your daily life. Chapter 4: Your Malleable Mind. How to Rewire Your Neural Pathways. This chapter is about possibility. It brings to light one of the most hopeful ideas in neuroscience, that the brain can change itself. Every thought you think, every action you repeat, every emotion you hold is shaping and reshaping the structure of your mind. This process is known as neuroplasticity, and it means that no matter your past, you can become someone new. The brain builds pathways like trails in a forest. The more you walk a trail, the clearer and easier it becomes. In the same way, your daily thoughts and habits form mental routes that the brain comes to prefer. This is why change feels hard. But with awareness and repetition, you can begin to create new, more empowering paths. The author explains that old patterns, self-doubt, fear, procrastination, can be interrupted. When you consciously choose different thoughts or actions, you begin to override the brain's default mode. This is not about faking positivity. It is about actively choosing thoughts that serve your future instead of clinging to the ones that protect your past. Rewiring the brain is a slow but powerful process. Like learning a new language or strengthening a muscle, it takes practice. But with consistent focus and repetition, you build a mind that supports your goals instead of sabotaging them. Key quotes: neurons that fire together, wire together. Your brain listens to your thoughts. Choose them carefully. If you want to change your life, change your default response. Action points: identify one negative thought loop you often fall into. Replace it with a more empowering statement and repeat it daily. Create a daily habit, however small, that reinforces a belief you want to strengthen. Chapter 5: Brain Agility. How to switch between different types of thinking. This chapter introduces a concept that can transform how you approach challenges: brain agility. At its core, brain agility means having the flexibility to think in different ways, depending on the situation. It is the opposite of being stuck in one mode, like always using logic or always reacting emotionally. A truly agile brain can switch between focus and intuition, creativity and strategy, emotion and reason. Most people rely on just one or two preferred ways of thinking. Some lean heavily on data and logic, while others may be driven by gut feelings or emotional instinct. But the real magic begins when you can consciously access all 6 core pathways of the brain: emotion, physicality, intuition, motivation, logic, and creativity. This is what the author calls whole brain thinking. Each pathway has a role to play. Emotion helps us connect. Physicality keeps us grounded and energetic. Intuition helps us sense subtle signals. Motivation fuels action. Logic brings clarity. Creativity allows us to see new possibilities. When these pathways work together, you make better decisions and navigate life with far more ease and confidence. An agile brain leads to an agile life, one that is resilient, creative, aware, and fully alive to what each moment needs. Key quotes: the more of your brain you access, the more of your life you can transform. Agility is not about speed. It is about choice. When your thoughts flow freely across all pathways, so does your life. Action points: reflect on which of the 6 thinking styles you rely on the most and which you tend to avoid. Practice approaching a small decision using a different thinking style than you usually would. Chapter 6: Emotions. Master your feelings. This chapter reveals a truth many overlook. Your emotions are not weaknesses to be suppressed. They are powerful signals from the brain and body that carry wisdom. When you learn to listen to them without judgment, you unlock a deeper level of intelligence. Emotional mastery is not about control. It is about understanding. Many of us grew up learning to hide or downplay our feelings. Anger, sadness, fear, these were seen as inconvenient or unproductive. But when emotions are ignored, they often surface in harmful ways. The author explains how suppressed emotion can lead to stress, burnout, poor decision-making, and even illness. On the other hand, when emotions are acknowledged and processed, they become a source of clarity and strength. The key is to pause before reacting. Instead of being swept away by the first surge of anger or anxiety, you observe it. You name it. You understand what it is trying to tell you. This act alone shifts the brain from survival mode to conscious choice. Over time, you begin to respond instead of react. Mastering emotion is not about being unshakable. It is about knowing what you feel and why, and using that awareness to make wiser choices. Key quotes: every emotion carries a message. Your job is to listen. Feelings are not failures. They are feedback. When you stop resisting emotion, you start reclaiming your power. Action points: choose one difficult emotion you often avoid and write about what it might be trying to show you. When triggered, take 3 deep breaths and name what you are feeling before taking action. Chapter 7: Physicality. Know yourself. This chapter reminds us that the brain does not operate in isolation. Your body is not just a container for your mind. It is a vital partner in shaping your mood, energy, and clarity. Every thought and emotion is influenced by your physical state. When you understand this connection, you stop treating the body as separate from your goals. The author emphasizes that your posture, sleep, diet, movement, and breathing all send signals to the brain. These signals either support your focus and well-being or slowly wear them down. For example, chronic stress and shallow breathing keep the brain in survival mode, where long-term planning and empathy become harder. A fatigued or undernourished body reduces resilience and heightens reactivity. This is not about chasing a perfect fitness routine. It is about tuning in, learning how your body responds to different situations, foods, and rhythms allows you to build a foundation that supports your mental strength. Small habits like daily movement, deep breathing, or even standing tall in stressful moments can shift your state almost instantly. When you reconnect with your body, you access a deeper source of wisdom. You move through life with more calm, clarity, and confidence. Key quotes: the body is not a servant of the brain. It is the brain's greatest ally. What you do with your body teaches your brain how to feel. Well-being is built from the ground up, breath by breath, step by step. Action points: do a body scan each evening. Notice areas of tension and what emotions might be behind them. Choose one daily ritual like walking, stretching, or breath work to reconnect with your body. Chapter 8: Intuition. Trust your gut. This chapter explores one of the most overlooked forms of intelligence: intuition. Often dismissed as vague or unscientific, intuition is actually a deep processing system in the brain and body. It works beneath conscious awareness, scanning patterns and signals that logic might miss. When you learn to trust this quiet inner voice, you tap into faster, wiser decision-making. Intuition is not magic. It is experience turned into instinct. The brain takes in millions of bits of information every second, most of which never reach the conscious mind. But that data still influences your feelings, your gut reactions, and your sense of knowing. The challenge is that many of us have learned to ignore or override these signals. The author explains that intuitive decisions often come with a sense of clarity or calm, even when there is no clear reasoning. It might be a hunch, a sudden insight, or a physical sensation. These signs can be especially valuable in relationships, leadership, or moments of risk, when logic alone may not offer the full picture. To strengthen intuition, you are encouraged to slow down. Silence, solitude, and stillness allow subtle insights to rise. Journaling helps translate your inner voice into words. Over time, you build trust in your own deeper knowing and begin to distinguish between fear-based reactions and true intuitive guidance. Key quotes: intuition is the brain's whisper. You must be quiet to hear it. Sometimes your body knows long before your mind does. Trust is not built in the mind. It is felt in the gut. Action points: recall a time you ignored your gut feeling and regretted it. Reflect on what the signal felt like. Spend 10 minutes in stillness each day and note any subtle thoughts, feelings, or physical sensations that arise. Chapter 9. Motivation. Stay resilient to achieve your goals. This chapter dives into the fuel that keeps dreams alive: motivation. It is easy to feel inspired at the start of a journey. But what happens when progress stalls, life gets messy, or doubt creeps in? True motivation is not a flash of excitement. It is a muscle you build through clarity, purpose, and emotional connection to your goals. The author explains that lasting motivation does not come from pressure or guilt. It comes from meaning. When your goals reflect what deeply matters to you, your brain becomes wired to pursue them even when challenges arise. This internal drive, rooted in your values, is more powerful than any external reward. Motivation also thrives on emotional investment. The more you imagine the joy, pride, or freedom your goal will bring, the more likely you are to stay committed. Your brain responds to these feelings by releasing dopamine, the chemical of motivation and reward. This is why visualizing success and celebrating small wins are not just nice ideas. They are tools for rewiring your drive. The chapter warns about common blocks like perfectionism, fear of failure, or relying too heavily on willpower. These patterns can drain energy and lead to burnout. The alternative is sustainable motivation, a combination of purpose, emotion, and structure. With that, you do not need to force momentum. It begins to carry you. Key quotes: discipline fades. Emotion lasts. You do not need to push harder. You need to remember why you started. The brain is motivated by meaning, not pressure. Action points: write down your core reason for pursuing your goal. Revisit it often, especially when motivation dips. Celebrate one small win today and feel the reward. This will anchor progress in your brain. Chapter 10. Logic. Make good decisions. This chapter reframes logic not as a rigid way of thinking, but as a flexible and adaptive tool that supports wise choices. Many people grow up believing logic is fixed. You either have it or you don't. But modern neuroscience shows that logical thinking is not a fixed trait. It is a skill you can develop, refine, and integrate with other forms of intelligence. We often associate logic with science, mathematics, or so-called left-brain thinking. But this idea is outdated. Real decision-making involves the entire brain. When people face complex problems, different brain regions light up simultaneously. Emotion, memory, pattern recognition, and reason all play a role. The strongest decisions come when all these elements work together in harmony. The chapter invites you to question how your logic is influenced. You may think a decision is purely rational, but it could be shaped by old emotional wounds, biases, or habits. The author provides examples from leadership and relationships to show how unexamined assumptions often lead to false logic. These hidden patterns can limit perspective and block creative solutions. Logic is not about eliminating emotion. It is about knowing when emotion is distorting your judgment and when it can guide it. The more aware you become of your mental filters, the better your choices become. Key quotes. The most important kind of logic is the one that questions itself. You don't know what you don't know until you challenge your assumptions. Real logic is a blend of truth, emotion, and perspective. Action points. Think about one recent decision you made. Reflect on whether it was driven by clarity or hidden emotion. Start building a habit of pausing before responding. Ask yourself, what else could be true here? Chapter 11. Creativity. Design your ideal future. This chapter reveals that creativity is not just for artists or inventors. It is a life skill that everyone needs to shape the future they want. Creativity is the ability to imagine new possibilities, solve problems in fresh ways, and express ideas that move us forward. It is how we bring dreams into form. Without it, we live on repeat. The author makes it clear that creativity is not about talent. It is about mindset. Most people believe they're not creative because they were never encouraged to be. But creativity lives in every brain. It simply needs space, attention, and permission to come alive. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Creativity thrives when the brain is relaxed and open. Moments of stillness, play, and even boredom can spark ideas that logic alone cannot reach. That is because the creative brain works through unexpected connections. It pulls from memory, emotion, and intuition to form something new. You cannot force it, but you can invite it. The chapter also explores the link between creativity and courage. Creating anything new involves risk. There is always the chance of failure, rejection, or being misunderstood. But if you avoid that risk, you also avoid growth. When you embrace discomfort and allow yourself to experiment, your confidence expands. This becomes the fuel not only for artistic ideas, but also for innovation in your career, relationships, and personal growth. Ultimately, creativity is about authorship. Instead of reacting to life, you begin to shape it with intention. You become the designer of your path, not just the passenger. Key quotes. Creativity is not what you do. It is how you see. The future does not just happen. It is imagined first. You cannot design your life without engaging your creative mind. Action points. Take 20 minutes to brainstorm a new idea without judging or editing it. Let your imagination lead. Do something playful or unfamiliar this week. Notice how your brain responds to new input. Chapter 12. Step 1. Raised awareness. Switch off your autopilot. This chapter marks the beginning of the transformation process. It introduces the first step in applying the tools of the brain to change your life, raising your awareness. Most people go through their days on autopilot. They repeat thoughts, emotions, habits, and reactions without realizing it. This unconscious loop keeps them stuck in the same patterns and outcomes. Awareness is the act of waking up. It is the ability to observe yourself without judgment. When you start paying attention to your thoughts, behaviors, triggers, and beliefs, you begin to break free from old programming. You shift from reacting to choosing. This single shift opens up the possibility of change. The brain is wired to conserve energy, which is why habits become automatic. But this efficiency comes at a cost. You begin to operate from the past rather than create from the present. The chapter offers practical tools to interrupt the autopilot. Simple check-ins, breath awareness, journaling, and tracking your triggers. These practices help you slow down enough to see what is really going on beneath the surface. Raised awareness also requires honesty. It asks you to look at parts of yourself you may have avoided, patterns that no longer serve you, stories that hold you back, emotions that you have buried. But once these come into the light, they begin to lose their power. You can respond with clarity instead of reacting out of habit. Key quotes. Awareness is the first act of power. You cannot change what you do not see. Autopilot keeps you safe. Awareness sets you free. Action points. Set 3 short reminders during the day to pause and check in with your thoughts and emotions. Start a daily reflection journal. Track what triggered you, how you reacted, and what you learned. Chapter 13. Step 2. Action Board It. This chapter introduces a powerful and practical tool to align your brain with your goals, the action board. Unlike the typical vision board filled with vague wishes and pretty images, an action board is purposeful, emotional, and rooted in neuroscience. It turns your dreams into a clear visual roadmap your brain can follow. The brain responds strongly to images, especially when they're linked to deep desires and positive emotions. This is where value tagging comes into play. When you repeatedly see pictures that represent your goals, the brain starts tagging those goals as important. It then works behind the scenes to filter in relevant information, ideas, and opportunities that match what you're focused on. But this tool only works when done with intention. The action board must include goals that are specific, emotionally meaningful, and within your stretch zone, not so small that they bore you and not so big that they paralyze you. The images should represent what you truly want to experience, feel, and become, not just what you think you should want. The chapter offers guidance on how to create and use an action board. You are encouraged to place it somewhere you see often, to engage with it daily, and to allow it to evolve as your vision becomes clearer. The key is consistency. Looking at your board for just a few minutes a day keeps your goals active in your mind and triggers your brain's natural motivational system. An action board is not about hoping something will happen. It is about training your brain to expect it and then act in alignment with that expectation. Key quotes: your brain believes what it sees over what it hears. When you give the brain a picture, it starts searching for the path. Dreams become goals when they are seen, felt, and planned. Action points: create an action board that reflects what you deeply want to experience. Choose images that spark emotion. Spend a few minutes each morning looking at your board while feeling the excitement of your future self. Chapter 14. Step 3. Focused attention. Neuroplasticity in action. This chapter shows how focused attention is the bridge between intention and transformation. The brain cannot change without attention. Neuroplasticity, its ability to rewire and grow, is activated by what you consistently focus on. What you think about repeatedly becomes the blueprint for who you become. The author explains that attention is like a spotlight. Whatever it shines on, it energizes. If you focus on fear or failure, you reinforce those circuits. If you focus on growth and action, you build new ones. This is not about obsessive control, but about steady, intentional awareness. Just a few minutes of focused thought each day can reshape how your brain responds to life. You are also reminded that attention is deeply linked to emotion. When something is emotionally meaningful, your brain pays closer attention to it. That is why it is important to connect your goals to a feeling. Without emotional weight, attention drifts. But when thought and feeling align, the brain enters a state of deep engagement and growth. Focused attention is a daily practice. The more consistently you train it, the faster your inner world starts to change, and with it, your outer reality. Key quotes: where your attention goes, your energy flows. The brain becomes what you repeatedly focus on. Attention is the lever that moves neuroplasticity. Action points: each morning, spend 5 minutes focusing on your main goal with full attention and emotion. Notice what thoughts steal your attention and begin gently bringing your focus back to what matters. Chapter 15. Step 4. Deliberate practice. The source comes to life. In this final step, the author introduces deliberate practice, the conscious, repeated action of living what you have learned. This is where the ideas and tools from the book take root. Real change is not a one-time insight. It is built through small, daily choices that align with your vision. Deliberate practice is different from just going through the motions. It requires focus, effort, and feedback. Whether you are building confidence, changing a habit, or stepping into a new identity, the brain needs consistent repetition to form new circuits. Each time you take action from your intention point, you reinforce a new pattern. The chapter emphasizes the power of micro shifts. You do not need to change everything at once. You only need to show up every day with intention. Over time, those small shifts compound. You begin to notice that you feel more calm, more focused, and more in control. Your life starts to reflect the vision you once imagined. The source becomes real, not in theory, but in practice. When you continue to raise awareness, focus attention, trust your inner wisdom, and take meaningful action, your brain transforms, and so does your experience of life. Key quotes: transformation is not a moment. It is a practice. You create your life one decision at a time. The source is not outside of you. It is what you repeatedly choose to become. Action points: choose one small action you can repeat daily that aligns with the life you want to create. Track your progress each week and reflect on the shifts you feel, internally and externally. Conclusion: the source reminds us that the power to change our lives isn't somewhere out there. It's within us in the way we think, believe, and take action. Gr. Tara Swart gives us the tools to align our brain with our deepest intentions. And that's where real transformation begins. If this summary sparked something in you, imagine what applying it could do. So go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Your mind is the source. Use it wisely,